Good morning, class. I hope everybody had a great start to their day. Today we're going to be finishing our unit on World War I, and we'll transition into World War II just a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. So today's bell ringer was, if you were in charge, how would you have decided to punish the countries in charge for World War I? Do you feel the punishments implemented were too harsh or too relaxed? And explain your answer. I wanted you guys to write your answers at the top of your notebook paper or at the top of your separate sheet of paper. That way everything was in one sheet and organized, so that way everything's in just one place for you guys. So you guys had time to complete this before the bell ring, so we're just going to go ahead and get started and we'll move on. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about the end of World War I and the beginning of World War II just a little bit. We'll just kind of transition just a little bit so that way it's easier for next week. So our learning objectives and our EQs, there's our learning objectives up there. I'm not going to read those today. Our essential questions are, what document officially ended World War I? Number 2, what was the clause in the Treaty of Versailles that officially placed blame on Germany for World War I? And number 3, who were the major powers in the beginning of World War II? So let's get into it. So the ending of World War I. World War I officially ended on November 11th, 1918, after Germany signed an armistice agreement. So does anybody know what an armistice agreement is? Anybody? No? Okay, so an armistice agreement is when a country decides to just stop fighting, basically, to put down their arms, put down their weapons, and end the war. So an armistice agreement is basically how Germany decided they wanted to just end the war. They're going to surrender, and we'll just go from there. So the official peace treaty was called the Treaty of Versailles, and we'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. So, the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was the peace treaty that brought World War I officially to an end. It ended war between Germany and the Allied powers. So if you remember, the United States waged war on Germany later in the war, after the sinking of the Lusitania and after the Zimmermann telegram, things like that. But you got to remember, Britain and France were already fighting Germany and had already declared war on Germany way before we did. So it's important to remember that. And finally, this Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28th, 1919. So I've got a quick little video for you guys. We probably won't watch all of it due to time constraints, but we'll watch a little bit of it.
Let's go into a little more detail on the Treaty of Versailles. So we've already talked about it helping to establish the League of Nations, but in specific, or particularly with regards to Germany, the biggest aspect of it was its application of war guilt, essentially putting the full blame of the war on Germany. Maybe you could justify it by saying, look, Germany was the most aggressive actor at the beginning of the war, declaring war on Russia and France without much provocation. But then the counter-argument would be, look, Austria-Hungary had already declared war on Serbia, Russia had already mobilized, but then the counter-argument, well, Germany gave a blank check to Austria. It said it would back up Austria no matter what Austria had done. Needless to say, this applied a lot of the Germans were not happy about being assigned the full blame of war guilt. Now, on top of that, we've already talked about the notion that it really diminished, the Treaty of Versailles really forced the German military to be diminished dramatically down to 100,000 troops, which is really now more of a glorified police force. It was also forbidden from forming a union with Austria. And you might say, why Austria in particular? Well, Austria is a German-speaking state. And so there, you could imagine, there's a lot of ethnic affinity or linguistic affinity between Germany and Austria. So this is not allowed according to the Treaty of Versailles. And then on top of that, Germany loses its colonies. And these colonies we've already talked about. These are colonies in Africa, colonies in Asia, and colonies in the Pacific. Then on top of that, we have the reparations. We have the reparations estimated at the equivalent in 2013 terms of about 450 billion US dollars. That doesn't get fully paid, but it still has a huge toll on the German economy, especially because the reparations were not just paid in currency, they were paid in resources. And to make sure that they were paid in resources, the Allies actually occupied the Saar region right over here, which was coal rich, and for the next 15 years it would ship that coal to France. So the Allies weren't just getting paid in currency, they were getting paid in dollars. But this would also have the effect as Weimar Germany, the Weimar Republic, this is the government of Germany after World War I, called the Weimar Republic because its constitution was drafted in the city of Weimar. In order to try to pay the currency portions of the reparations, lets the printing presses go free, tries to convert into other currencies, and then you essentially have hyperinflation in Germany through the early 20s through 1923. And on top of that, once this hyperinflation happens and they no longer can pay their reparations, then in order to continue to extract resources from Weimar Germany, France goes ahead and occupies the Ruhr region, which is right about here. It's also very rich in steel and coal, and they began shipping the resources out, which was another huge humiliation for the Germans. And on top of that, it's crippling the German economy. They're taking all of the main resources out of the German economy. This happened in 1923 as well. And the combined effect of, one, just the humiliation of World War I, the shipping away of resources, now this occupation of the Ruhr region, which was never even part of the already bad Treaty of Versailles from the Germans' point of view, this helped bring support for fairly more and more extreme parties in Germany. And as you go into the end of 1923, it gave some energy for Hitler's, at the time, fairly small National Socialists, or their Nazis, to attempt a coup d'etat of the government, attempt their beer hall putsch. It ends up failing, but it does give a lot of energy to what was before a very a marginalized or very small party. Because of this occupation, allows that party to grow by a significant amount.
Okay, so we're going to stop there for the video, and we will continue with our PowerPoint here. Okay, so, like the video was saying, there was a war guilt clause in the article, in the Treaty of Versailles, and it was listed under the Article 231 of the treaty. So what this did is that it officially gave blame to Germany for World War I. So kind of like the video was saying, it forced them to pay repercussions, both in money, which is their colonies that they had to give up. They had to give up land that they had occupied during World War I. It decreased their military. They were forced to export resources. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but what the video was saying about the Weimar Republic is that it made Germany's government weaker, which allowed opportunities for more extremist parties such as the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler. It was relatively weak at the time, what the video was saying, but we all know what happens later on, and like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and continue. So, in the aftermath of World War I, Germany pays the repercussions for World War I. It decreases its military. The Weimar Republic is created. Any land claim was returned. They had to give up any kind of colonies, any kind of land and money that they had taken due to the destruction. The global economy rebuilds. And lastly, this is where you see the United States and Russia emerge as global powers. So, prior to World War I, the United States hadn't been really in a major war. So, in terms of military might, nobody was really scared, nobody was really afraid. Russia obviously showed its prowess a little bit during World War I, but it hadn't really made an impact. But after World War I, that is when you see these two countries come out as global superpowers in terms of military might, in terms of resources. And you see that later on in terms of the Cold War and space race and things like that. We'll get into that later on in another unit. But the United States and Russia turn out to be major superpowers coming out of World War I. And you see it in World War II as well. So transition into World War II. What happens after World War I? So obviously you've got the Treaty of Versailles. It makes Germany very, very angry. And it lays the foundation for, like we were saying earlier, for an extremist party such as the Nazi Party to take shape in Germany, to build rapport with the people, and to just kind of grow. Now, they do have to take into account the fallen economy in Germany, all the limitations they have now due to how violent and aggressive they were. However, eventually things start to grow up for Germany. and that's when you'll see Adolf Hitler coming to power under the Nazi Party. You'll see another fascist in Italy in Mussolini. You'll see Hirohito in Japan. We all know about Pearl Harbor. That happens in World War II. We'll get into that. And obviously in Russia, in the Soviet Union, you've got Joseph Stalin, who was another fascist. And we'll talk about our relationship with Russia a little bit later on. Obviously, we all know about the Cold War. But we become allies with Russia out of necessity, out of need. And we'll see that a little bit later on. So, something I just wanted to kind of throw in here is Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. So, it means my struggle, and this is Adolf Hitler's autobiography that he wrote about himself and about kind of his ideologies and his kind of way he thinks, his process, his journey of being a young soldier to now becoming a fascist leader in Germany, a very powerful leader. He's actually a very, very good speaker and as well as a good writer. So if any of you guys want to check this out, this is something I recommend. It would be really cool. So, I'm going to get into a little paper assignment. You guys are going to have a week to complete the assignment. So, this is what I want. I want you guys to write a 2 to 3 page research paper. Double spaced, 12-point font, Times New Roman. I want you guys to choose a particular event, country, battle, and I want you guys to research the topic. So, anything from World War I, early World War II, I'll give you guys that if you want to. But I want you guys to make sure you have an argument or a standing about the writing. So, if you're trying to say that the United States should have entered World War I much sooner, then run with that. Take that standing that you have and find resources, find knowledge that can help you, support that argument and support that standing. If you're the opposite, find research that'll help you support that argument. But I just want you guys to kind of, delve deeper into the topics. I want you guys to interact with the topics, and this is how I'm going to do it. I have a rubric for you guys right here. So what I want you guys to do is A is exemplary, B is above average, C is adequate, and D is inadequate. We will talk about this later on as well, but I have this printed out for you guys and I'll hand that out to you guys later. Guys, so now that we've gone over the rubric, let's go ahead and get into our post-test for today. So let's go ahead and get into it. So your post-test for today, and I'll pass this out. You guys have 10 questions. It's the exact same as the pre-test that we did at the beginning of the unit. So all I need you guys to do is go through. You'll circle your best answer choice. So you'll circle the letter. You'll have your name, your date. It is worth 50 points. This one is graded. So I would like for you guys to complete this. I'll give you a little bit of time to do so. Whenever you're done, just go ahead and flip it face down on your desk and I'll come by and pick it off your desk. Okay, so now that you guys are done with your post-test, I'm going to quickly go ahead and explain your homework assignment. So you have a transition into World War II. I want you guys to identify and explain 3 factors that influence the transition from World War I to World War II in the space provided. So an example would be the Treaty of Versailles, and you can use this. So what in the Treaty of Versailles caused or led into World War II? So you could talk about the War Guilt Clause, in which Germany was blamed for World War I and made them angry, led them to, have to pay repercussions, have to give up land, things like that. So all I want you guys to do is I want you to go through, I just want you to list it up here, and then I want you guys to write and explain your answers on the 3 lines below. It is worth 25 points. It is for a grade, but yeah, so that's about it. That's all you guys have to do. And so I want you guys to turn that in for homework tomorrow, or over the weekend, I'm sorry. And I will collect that on Monday. So I hope you guys have a good weekend. Whenever the bell rings, you can be dismissed. I will see you guys on Monday. Have a good one.